On this episode of Athletes Anonymous presents After the Buzzer, we're going to be talking about the New York Knicks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Sacramento Kings, the Los Angeles Lakers, and everything going around in the NBA right now. But let's get to that intro music. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your co-host, Keone McKeague, and with me, as always, are my longtime friends and co-host, Nolan Chen, Jared Shirai. Say what's up to the pod, boys.
What up, everybody? What's up?
Ooh, I was about to sneeze super hard.
I had to stop every sneeze because every time I sneeze now, it's getting soft in the back of my spine.
So yeah,
that's the worst.
It's funny too because I was getting so into the music, I almost forgot I had to do the intro. Anyway, like I said, this is Athletes Anonymous presents After the Buzzer, and we will be talking about all of the things going around in the NBA. I'm going to throw it over to you guys first because we have the New York Knicks, a team that we did not see doing much, especially after they went and signed Jalen Brunson as if he was going to be their headliner star. I mean, they're kind of proving us wrong a little bit here, but I'm going to start with you first, Nolan, because we specifically harped on the fact that they went out and signed this guy to a max
For a
contract
lot of money. Yeah.
and basically made him the number one person on their team. But Julius Randle showing out, Josh Hart, obviously after the trade, coming over to the New York Knicks, doing fantastic. What are your thoughts on the New York Knicks thus far?
I think it's just a lot of the perfect storm for them, especially in the East. I mean, in the whole league in general, both conferences are pretty tight-knit race into the playoff run because of just how low everyone's record is. Even the number one seeds are relatively low given their situations. I think the Bucks are 48 and something right now. I mean that's a good winning record for a number one, but
we don't have any complete standout teams this year like we normally would. Yeah,
I know that there was a post going around where I think it was back in 2010. The top 7 teams all had 50 wins or something like that in the West. So that seems like such a far off time from where it is now, just because both East and West this year are struggling. A low 30 is going to get you to play in. But hey, Julius Randle, he's had 2 good seasons prior to this one where he was showing out, doing some big things. People were still kind of doubtful about him and his play style because he's not the number one guy, and that's very apparent. But he seems to be, if he is a part of a 1-2 punch, he is playing off well. Jalen Brunson is kind of showing why he deserved that contract. You have Emmanuel Quickly who's coming off the bench. He's playing very well. You have small role guys like Quentin Grimes coming out of nowhere and doing their job. A veteran like Fournier is barely getting as many minutes just because their team is doing really well. D Rose on that team. He's kind of acting as that veteran. Yeah, he hasn't played at all, but he's acting as that veteran, and I think he's buying in.
From the crowd chants?
Yeah.
That boy needs to. It's funny because I really was hoping he was going to get traded to the Bulls for no real reason other than the fact that I feel like they would have actually played him, and it sucks that the Knicks are just kind of letting him just ride the damn bench. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, good for them. I know they still have Mitchell Robinson, who has actually been able to stay healthy this year, and he's a great defending big man in the paint. So, it's a perfect storm for a lot of teams this year, making it into the playoffs and making deep runs into the playoffs. So, good for them.
I'm going to throw it over to you, Jared, because we're still sticking on the topic of the New York Knicks. Obviously, we see that they've had a tremendous success thus far. Do you think that they have a real shot in the postseason, as in, are they title contenders when it comes to it all?
I mean, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I don't know. It's tough to say because you have Boston and Milwaukee in that league. Sixers are playing good ball finally. I mean, that's who we picked to come out of the top, and they're finally figuring it out. And then you can't count out Cleveland. Cleveland's been pretty solid. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, we were talking about Donovan Mitchell, how much we don't really care for Donovan Mitchell, but he's really showed out this season to really lead that team along with the young guns that's on that team. So I would say with New York, I was kind of looking over their schedule, their record and everything. They're a really streaky team. Like they go on big win streaks and then they lose a little and then they go on big win streaks. Like they went on a 9 and just recently they went on a 9, lost 3, and then they beat the Lakers. And like if they streak at the right times, and especially playoff basketball, you streak at the right time. I mean, anything can happen. And with the way they're playing in the general, like Nolan talked about, where they're very well rounded. They have their guns, they're 1-2 punch, but everybody else is kind of adding in here and there, knowing and understanding their role. That New York actually might be a team that is very underrated going into the playoffs right now. I mean, the only other team that I would say is more underrated is Brooklyn, because they don't really have an all-star like we talked about last week, but at the same time, they're just playing great team ball as well. So that 5-6 seed right now, where they're actually, they're 10 games out of first, but they're 39-29 and 40-30. I mean, the records are basically identical. They have the same makeup of their team, where it's no real all-stars, but people are just filling roles and making runs at great times. So I don't know. I want to say they could potentially be. We'll see what happens, because the play-in games right now are teams that have great showings, or the Bulls are still in the play-in game. Like
they're
streaky
there
as well. They're the same way as well. They're streaky. Like if they get on that right little run, I wouldn't want to play them. Toronto's down there. I wouldn't want to play Toronto. So
I know it's funny because
after the playing game, we'll see what happens.
I think they were doing like a little piece on the Bulls for a little bit, where they're talking about how there are like 2 teams at the top of the East that they either don't want to see the Bulls or they want to see the Bulls. And one of those teams is the 76ers and the other team is the Celtics. I'll let you guys decide which one is which, but I mean, it's the Celtics, I think, are the ones that don't want to see the Bulls, because for whatever reason, we seem to just have our best games against them. And the 76ers, we seem to...
You match up better with them.
Yeah, the 76ers, we have never beat Joel Embiid. So it's like, wow. Like, there's literally something that's... I think there was a streak where it's like, we've never won when Joel Embiid is on the court. So...
Damn.
Wow.
No idea.
Crazy.
That dude just tears up the Bulls. So
I mean, technically, his first year was after D Rose's accident, so it was past the high.
So,
peak.
basically, every Levine team has never beat Joel Embiid. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, we're not talking about the Bulls. It was like that could be a whole nother podcast on its own. Anyway, moving over. Stay within the New York realm. We still got the Brooklyn Nets. We're just, I mean, you just brought it up. They're still fighting. I think one thing that I was going to mention about the New York Knicks specifically, the interesting is they still have Thibodeau as their coach, which I was just like, I mean, for all intents, everybody always wrote off Thibodeau in Chicago, but I mean, seeing his success with the team before and after, it's just he's got to be.
I mean, to be fair, I think the only thing is there was never a doubt that Thibodeau was a good coach. It was just people always criticized the amount of rotations that he would leave alone. You know what I mean? Like he
probably broke Derrick Rose's knees.
Knock on wood. I don't hope anything happens to the Knicks, but I know that that's really the biggest thing that people criticize him about. And I know that I think his last game that they won against the Lakers, some reporter asked, he's like, you ever thought about asking Julius Randle if he wants to sit out and rest? And Thibodeau was like, I don't understand your question. I was like,
it's funny. It's funny because I feel like Julius Randle is a perfect fit with him, because I feel like Julius Randle's the type of guy that's he wants all the minutes. He's not trying to sit out any games. He's that's why I said you need those type of guys for Thibodeau, because Jimmy Butler was that guy for us, where he just wasn't willing to sit out.
I would say
Thibodeau wanted him.
You see a very big pattern with a lot of the guys that were drafted with the Lakers during the Kobe's end span, like Jordan Clarkson, D'Lo, even what was it?
Don't
Oh, yeah,
go down
Julius
the
Randle.
list. This is only going to hurt you more.
Yeah,
Nolan,
I'm just
stop
saying,
it.
like
Don't go down this list.
They always
it's
talk
gonna
about
hurt you.
how he
I
meant
know.
so much.
I know. It's funny because like the more I think about all the players that they had on their team at the one time, it's
And
like the
went
worst
this
it
way.
gets. Because how fantastic all those guys are doing right now outside of LA is just.
Hey, I'll be the first one to
insane
tell you,
me.
Lakers are not a developmental team,
Yeah,
but they are try to win now whenever they can. So whatever it is,
but
I mean,
it
part of it
seems
too
OP
is the
when you think
franchise.
about it. Yeah.
it does. It does seem OP.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if you really were like, oh, you put
B.I.
yeah, B.I., Julius Randle,
Even Larry Nance averages like 7
Larry
and 8.
Nance, yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like Josh Hart, it's like D'Lo, like it's just like the team is just like if you're looking at it from that way, it's like man, all these guys are thriving wherever they are. But anyway, sorry, we just. I know we'll get to the Lakers eventually, but right now, like I said, Brooklyn Nets on a win streak. Still a number 5 seed, still holding it down. I mean, I think maybe they dropped 1 or 2 spots, maybe.
I think they dropped 1 spot. I think they
Yeah,
were
I was
fourth
like,
at the
I think
top.
they were 4th when Kevin Durant fell out or left the team. Not fell out, obviously. He just left the team. Yeah,
fell
just
out,
fell out
yeah.
of the rotation. No. But the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, what can you say, Jared? I mean, I know you kind of talked about them, but expand a little bit on just how they're doing and what is it to you that sticks out about this team specifically?
Great. I mean, I know Minnesota's not like what is Minnesota ranked now? Minnesota's the number 7 team in the West, but like you look at that overtime game. I mean, 124, 123, just the willingness to play. And then they played Milwaukee the night before and went 118, 113. They only lost by 5. And at the same time, you look at it, I'm looking at the stats a little bit, but like Bridges, what more can you say?
Yeah, bro.
It's Bridges, like Bridges. Mills. Like, it's just crazy how big an impact this guy is having on this team. After everybody said that they would lose the trade, like they were the losers of the trade.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I feel like because they're like I talked about last week, because there's no superstar, I feel like, everybody's just more willing to get down and dirty, find wins the way they can. I think it's a little more team oriented in a sense. Like he scores a lot of points for them, but it's like you see the things that they do with the ball. You see the rotations they play, the defense that they're grinding now. I mean, the stops that they have to make in big plays. And I think it's attributed to the style of play they have to play now. Because if they don't play like that, they easily drop out of the top 10. Like, I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
They don't have that firepower, that superstar power to say, hey, like how Steph and Clay or Jordan Poole or anybody else in the
give him
Western
the ball.
Conference could just say, literally just jump on my back and I'm just going to bomb balls and I'll carry you. I'll score a 40-point game tonight. Hey, you go score 40 tomorrow. And then, hey, we'll just let the third guy score 40 and everybody gets a night off. They don't have anybody like that. Mikal Bridges has to carry, but at the same time, he's understanding his restrictions where he can give the ball to other players and trust them with it. Whereas other teams are in the past, it was, do I trust you with the ball? And, that's a big thing in basketball. You only have 5 people on the court, right? So you got to trust every single person that you come across on the court, no matter what rotation it is. And it looks like they're doing that a lot more now than pre-Kevin, with Kevin Durant before the trade.
That's a very good, it's a very good analysis. Actually, it's funny because I was just going to I completely forgot I wanted to bring up Kevin Durant kind of getting injured with the Phoenix Suns and how you guys will think that'll impact. I don't know. Toilet paper. Here we go. No, I'm just looking, but I'm going to throw it over to you, Nolan, because obviously they traded for him, expected him to be there.
You're the injured one, so you got to answer it.
Yeah, they expected him to be there for this post All-Star run, but now he's supposed to be out for possibly 3 to 4 weeks, just before the playoffs start, and then obviously he's going to have to get his footing a little bit right when the playoffs start. As far as you're concerned, one, do you see this being an issue for them being title contenders this year? Because obviously after the trade was done, their title contendership went way up. And two, does this is this kind of a pattern with Kevin Durant as he's like dwindling down here? Like, is this something that you see kind of being like a detriment to what has been a pretty strong resume?
I mean, yeah, I would definitely see it's a detriment because it's an accident. Obviously, it's not like you plan injuries.
Also, that floor wiper kid is fired.
It wasn't. Did you see the video though? It wasn't even.
I
stepping.
did.
He just stepped. Like he goes for an open layup and his ankle. He just steps on it wrong and it turns. And I was like, wow. And everyone was making fun of it. And then they found the video and it's just.
It's funny because his leg is so skinny that it's just like it looks like his foot would slip. But okay, I didn't actually catch that video, but I was just thinking, I was like, poor kid.
He needs to reassess his.
He's so excited with his little like. I get to sweep the sweat, and then he's just like
for the Phoenix Suns. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
I'm watching the video right now too. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He should be the one that should be considered street clothes because he's missed way more games than AD has over the past 3 seasons, and
that's a fantastic
they always called AD Mr. Glass,
That's crazy.
Mr. Street Clothes. But hey, man, there's multiple players that are big names that have been doing it more and more now. But it is going to be a detriment.
Maybe they just meant KD.
KD. Okay.
Both of them.
But I think they have a strong standing right now where they can weather this storm till the playoffs start. And if he comes back healthy for at least the first round, it should be okay.
I'm so sad right now. I was trying to get the song to play, but it didn't play. Yeah, I was trying to, but it didn't get that. There we go.
And then you should add in like a record scratch.
It's funny because I actually just made tears come out. Acting.
Wow. Sign us. We'll gladly do a movie for everybody. But yeah, I think that depending on who they face in the first round, they should be safe. If they play a healthy Mavericks team, that's going to be a great battle just because of the rivalry between Luka and Booker already.
Oh, yeah.
And you can have Kyrie match up with CP3. You have decent rotation of big men that can try to contain Ayton. So if KD isn't able to come back for that round, it's going to lean more in their favor for the Suns. But KD's back, then you have way more on your plate. But I do think that these teams that are coming up in the lower play-ins or anything like that, a lot of them have a chip on their shoulder, and they can, if KD isn't back, they can definitely take this game to some deep rounds of a 7-game series and maybe even squeeze out the W because the Suns so far, great team, but they haven't proven anything yet other than making a finals and then losing to the Bucks. I mean, does that really say anything about a team? It doesn't because he didn't finish the job. So for KD, maybe it is the universe's karma just coming back saying, try to go to another team again. We're just going to make you sit somehow. But, I still think the Suns are a decent team. Adding him, if he is healthy, will be nothing but a good positive rotation for them. So we just have to see how his rehab is coming. And then when the playoffs come, we'll see who they're facing.
Man, it's story of his life a little bit.
Really
anyway, but yeah, I'm gonna swing it over to you, Jared, because you're a pseudo fan of the Warriors, and there's been a lot of drama between your. All right, calm down.
Just a little.
Right.
Just a little.
There's been a little bit of
it was on sale. Sorry.
A back and forth between your team and the Memphis Grizzlies. So obviously, we kind of seen how this shook out between Draymond and Dillon Brooks, firing back and forth, whether it be on Draymond Green's podcast or kind of post-game interviews with Dillon Brooks. And obviously, the Grizzlies ended up taking that last game right before or right after they had their kind of back and forth. First and foremost, is Dillon Brooks now the most hated player in the league? And second of all, Do you think the Grizzlies actually have some sort of grounds to be standing on as far as this argument of them being rivals with the Golden State Warriors?
Well, to answer your first question,
Yep.
I do and I don't think Dillon Brooks is the most hated guy in the NBA because even though I'm a fan, I'm still going to say LeBron's probably the most hated player in the NBA. People just love to hate on LeBron for all kind of things, okay? And then the second most hated person is probably Kevin Durant. I mean, dude,
that's fair. That is fair.
It's fair. It's fair to say those two. But as far as when you're on the court and you're watching people play and the way Dillon Brooks holds himself and he tries to be that guy, I would say yeah. I would have to say yeah. That's why I said it's a yes and no question. If you're going overall, I would say LeBron and KD are the 1 and 2. But if you're going the way, if you had to play against it, it's kind of like how Pat Bev is. People hate playing against Pat Bev, right? Because of the way he is and how he acts. And
I love him.
I think Dillon Brooks is trying to, I love him.
Yeah.
No,
because he's on my team.
Even if he doesn't feel LeBron and everything. So, but it's just the way he plays the game and the heart and the emotion he wears. It's different
funny
from Dillon
how
Brooks.
the nouns or for describing him change whenever he's against you or for you. When he's against you, it's he's a pest, he's a prick, he's a and
he's annoying.
Then when he's on your team, he's hard nosed, he's a great worker, he's a hustler. You just change those words around depending on where he is.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's what it is. But when you look at it, it's two different types of ball for me when it comes. Dillon Brooks, and even though he's a Duke player and he helped us out a lot, he reminds me of Grayson Allen. He really reminds me of Grayson Allen, the cheap shots and everything. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot to it. And like I said, even though he's a Duke player and I love my Dukes, thank God they won the ACC. Let's go, baby. But sorry, I had to throw that in there. But yeah. I mean, that's the type of player that I feel like he is, and that's not the reputation you want in the league. So yes, as far as a player that you're playing against, I think Dillon Brooks is probably one of the most hated players, and it's fair to say that they are rivals. And the only reason why I kind of look at it's not the Draymond and him podcast off the court things, is he's trying to emulate Draymond. In my opinion, Draymond was one of the most hated players in the league. Everybody hated playing against him because he's dirty, whatever. He would he kicked Steven Adams straight square, with the rebound leg kick and everything. And so in that regard, I would have to say it's a rivalry because they're in the same conference. They have the same kind of type of players. They have the flash in Ja Morant and Steph Curry, and they have the grind in Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green. And of course, we said Draymond's been a little more under the radar this year because of the whole preseason incident and all this other stuff. But still, when you look at it, when you got a guy like Draymond, he's not going to back down. Even at the incident at the beginning of the year, he's not going to back down. You want to come at him during a game or come at him, he's not going to be afraid to speak his mind. I mean, it's been shown through the last how many years, and they've been successful in all those years because that's the dog. He brings out the dog. Like we said, we have the dog in his whole team. Whether you think they're soft or not, Draymond will pick up the slack for whatever's going on. And so when it comes down to them in Memphis, I think it's fair to say that they got a little bit of a rivalry because of the way they play each other and the things that the interactions that happen during the game. It's not even just about the fact that they play each other that much. The interactions between the two of them make for great headlines. And I think sometimes it does get blown up because it is great headlines. Yeah. And it could be just a hard-nosed fought game, but people are microscoping, oh, did you see what Dillon Brooks
did? I will say this. Do you think that Ja Morant, and obviously I'm not going to really get into this because I don't really feel like it's necessary for us to discuss it because we already went in length about it previously, but with Ja Morant kind of entering into rehab, do you think that without him playing for the Grizzlies that they really have a shot against what is, a returning champ in the Golden State Warriors? Especially when as far as when it gets to the playoffs time, I guess, is because I think they're done for the season as far as head-to-head games.
I mean, I would, they play them one more time.
Oh, they do play
March
18th. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they played
I think at home.
Gotcha.
I think they play Golden State. Yeah, they play Golden State at home. So I think they do, and I think it's history has shown, and this is why we're talking about, like, I don't think Ja's that guy, is that last season was it last season when he was out? And their record, and we talked about it, I think, when we first started the podcast, because it's playoff time. They have a better record with him out than they do with him in. And it's because it's not focused around Ja Morant. I mean, yeah, you want your superstar, but when you have a team the way they have their team developed and built, it's not about the one superstar. It's about grinding on defense and spreading the ball around the court. And they've shown that and beat some good teams. Like, they beat Dallas on back-to-backs. They beat Golden State. Yeah, they go on losing streaks here and there, but they beat Denver. I mean, and Denver's not a pushover team. So it's like they have the ability, and you're not sitting in second place in the Western Conference.
You know, it's funny. Now that you say it, it's kind of interesting to think that they could technically have, like, say, Ja Morant's out for an extended period. They could technically have a solid big three in what is like a kind of skyrocketing Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, it's not like they don't have some guys that could turn into something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I don't think it's far fetched to say that they're going to have a good run without Ja Morant, because it's been proven in the past. So, I mean, and the way they've been playing lately, who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know we've been talking about kind of streaky teams as we're heading towards, I mean, it seems like the whole league's been pretty streaky this year in general. But I'm going to swing it over to you, Nolan, because we're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings, their head coach, Mike Brown, what he's been able to do with the team. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on what you've seen from the Sacramento Kings this year that kind of proven us wrong? Because I don't think any of us predicted that they would even be contending even slightest this year. So just throwing it over to you. What do you think about this?
Once again, it is a perfect storm for the Sacramento Kings. We have a West that is also struggling to kind of get their win numbers up. The Sacramento Kings, I believe, are now 40 wins in. Last 40 win season they had was like an 06 or something like that. But you have I'll consider them veterans at this point. You have veterans like De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, who are playing fantastic. Trey Lyles is that gritty guy that's coming off the bench. He just got in a fight with Brook Lopez last night. Yep. You have surprise guards like Monk. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a surprise guard because he's been doing pretty well with whatever team he's been on. He doesn't always get his fair shake whenever he goes to a team. I know the Lakers.
To be fair, though, the Lakers were kind of his resurgence a little bit because
I'm sad we didn't bring him back.
Charlotte run was bad.
I'm sad we didn't bring him back, but hey, good for him right now. So you got this team. Harrison Barnes is still on that team, who's a decent older 3-and-D player, and I think that it's just playing out well because I believe they're the top-ranked offensive team in the NBA, but they're the bottom 5 for defense. So I wouldn't say that they're fakers, but when it comes down to playing against a team in the playoffs that is going to be able to slow down their pace, is going to be able to match up, they're not going to really have too much to do with it because, one, they have such a young team. None of them have been to the playoffs. And then all of a sudden you're facing a team that is forcing you to miss shots, and then you can't stop them as well because your team is just not defensive. But I will absolutely give credit to Mike Brown because what he's done with this team in 1 year, it's amazing. And the Sacramento team is.
This was his first year, yeah.
I believe it's his first year.
Yeah, because it was Jaeger before that, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. I
could be mistaken. If anyone's out there, fact check us. But
like, it could be like second. Yeah. It could be a second, but maybe he came in like mid last year or something.
And Mike Brown's been around the league for a long time. We all know that. Yeah. He's had some pretty good teams in the past. So when you have a veteran coach who can come in and still even adapt to today's game and still bring in success, that's what we really want to see. So, if he does get Coach of the Year this year, fantastic. But he has to replicate it again next year and the year after that. Because if not, then we all know and we'll look at it as like it was a fluke. It was just the league was too weak last year, and obviously it was a fluke. But in this current time, he deserves his flowers.
Number one. Wow. Yeah, that's actually pretty, impressive. Regardless of how their record looks or whatever it might be. But, the defense, though, It's like
That's
such
what I'm
a
saying.
stark difference between both
What
sides.
wins championships? Defense. So
Yeah. Isn't it okay, not to make this about my team, but if there was one side of the ball that you thought a Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic team would be top 5 in, which one would you think it would be?
well, it's not defense.
Yeah, exactly. However, they are.
Wow.
It's like, and it's the opposite.
Why? Because they're not scoring.
We're like 22 in offense and then like 3rd in defense. This year.
That's crazy.
Like, yeah, I was like, isn't that weird? Like everybody's like, I don't get it. How do we have 3 guys who don't defend and somehow we're a top 3 defense, but we're poor in scoring? Anyway, sorry. It's just, yeah. Sorry, little Bulls trivia for anybody who's out there that's a Bulls fan. Throwing it over to you, Jared, with our final topic. We're going to kind of let you both have the floor on this one. Post All-Star break, the Los Angeles Lakers make a bevy of trades. They bring in Jared Vanderbilt. They bring in Mo Bamba. They bring in D'Angelo Russell. Please correct me if I'm missing anybody else. I forgot who else came. Malik Beasley. There we go. I was like, there was one more guy. But yeah, so they bring in a bunch of these kind of younger guys to even out the age on the team, considering how old the team used to be. But what are your thoughts on the Lakers post All-Star break?
Go ahead, Nolan.
At this point, since the trade deadline, I believe the Lakers had the best trades conducted in the NBA.
Yep, we did say they were winners at the trade deadline.
Rob Pelinka
100%.
for sure put in the work. He got guys who were unselfish, and thankfully 3 of those guys have played together for a while now and had chemistry already. Line that up next to AD. When you have LeBron back, it's going to be just like a pivy of assists everywhere because you have D'Lo, who's a great shooter offensively, but he's also willing to give the ball to his teammates. You have Malik Beasley, who hasn't really come into his part of the 3-and-D player yet. It's kind of streaky, but he is an athletic force. You have Vanderbilt, who's an absolute stud on the defensive end, a hustle player, and I don't even know what it is. You have guys like Wenyen Gabriel who are stepping up to the plate when it needs, and he's been on the team for last year and this year. So it's, I'm not bringing it over to that side of this situation, but you can tell there's a different energy now in the locker room and on the court, and it's showing in spades. There's games, ironically, the games that we lost were games that we should have won, and games that we needed to win, we did win. So it's a little funky going into the last. I think we have 9 games left, starting with tonight's game. And I believe our goal was to hit 16, and I don't remember how many, but we have 7 wins right now. So we got to win 9 of the next 16 if we want to avoid play-in. And we mentioned it before. Worst case scenario, we're in the play-in. But we talked about it earlier. You're facing
Don't know what I want to see there.
You're facing against Memphis, a team that we can beat. You're facing against Phoenix. If they don't have KD back healthy, we can beat them. You match up against Sacramento. We have the number 1 defense in the league, and we just talked about, hey, if they face a team that has defense and can slow down their offense, it's going to mean a lot worse for them. And all the team members on the Lakers right now are veterans at this point who have been in the playoffs, who have done some sort of team changes, but have been there in the postseason time in and time out. So for us, once again, everything, the dominoes are falling in the right direction, and it's just up to them to actually complete the mission. So I'm very happy with how the trade line ended and how the pieces that we got. I'm hoping LeBron is able to come back healthy, but at the same time, even if he's not ready quite yet and we have minute limit on him, this team and this rotation is doing a fantastic job, and I can't ask for more right now.
Fantastic analysis. I was like, I almost seemed like you were going to cry there for a second. It was just like,
I just don't have a voice, guys.
And then they're working their hardest. I was just like, damn.
And then they did it for Powell. On Powell's night.
I know, just like you almost
And
had
we
me
never
tearing
went
up.
on tribute nights.
But
Did you
straight
guys
over
know
to
that,
you.
though?
I did not know that.
Lakers never win on tribute night.
Wow, that's kind of funny. Throwing it over to you, Jared. You're the LeBron fan. We are seeing. Do you think that, because I think there was an interview, I forgot who it was, but specifically talking about the effect of having LeBron on your team and kind of knowing that you're competing for a title this year because you bring him in or you have him on your team, you know that's your goal for the year. It's not, oh, I got to get better this year. It's not like, oh, I'm going to grow this year. It's we're competing for a championship. Get in line, get out. So throwing it over to you, do you think that this has to do with that kind of idea of LeBron being the guy that makes teams want to contend? Or do you think that this is another one of those, like Nolan was saying, where the dominoes are kind of falling in place as far as AD is finally kind of able to string together a few healthy games and able to kind of resurge as like a top 5 player in the league, and then just kind of the addition of like these young pieces in D'Lo, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley kind of being, you know, solid in their own right, but kind of getting a chance to shine with the team this year?
He always asks tough questions. No, I'm just kidding. I think Nolan broke it down though. Like when you have the young core and the willingness to pass the ball, like I think that's the one thing. And the LeBron, and I hate to say this, but like having LeBron out is probably the best thing for the Lakers right now because it teaches them to play a game without him because he can easily insert himself in a game, and because he's the master of studying film, master of understanding players, plays, and everything, that he can hit the ground running because the players are already well into a system. I think it does attribute to Anthony Davis, even though he's day to day, like to be healthy, having him be able to take that load. And even the same thing when the interview that he had after the loss to Knicks, he goes, "That's my bad. I played terrible." He's taking ownership. He knows this is his time to lead, his time to get the troops going and get everybody involved and get everybody on the same train so that when LeBron gets in on the next stop, when he gets healthy, that they're hitting the playoffs running. So I think in the regard of that, like that's literally what it comes down to is they're understanding the whole team ball aspect. I think it does really have to do with AD being able to string healthy games together. But I mean, I would honestly say though, any team like that LeBron has been on, you already know there's already that. It's not even pressure from him at some point. It's like you have LeBron James on your team. You have to like be a title contender this year.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason that you know what I mean. I mean, it's hard to say in the sense of whether you have to weather injury, new rosters, or whatever. It's just he's been to the playoffs or the finals so many times in a row or in his career that it's more expected than it is like thinking that he has to what he has to go through a season. And I think that's why the mentality always becomes get on or get out. So I mean, it sucks because like if you're one of those players that are just like, oh, I got traded to this team and LeBron's on it, and that's the expectation, even though it's like, hey, this is a new system for me. Never seen or played with any of these players. I mean, just that kind of atmosphere for a player like that, it's gonna be tough for the first few go-arounds. And the fact that they have the players haven't really had to deal with LeBron as much on the court, more off the court, seen from the outside in and how he views the game, I think it allows them to kind of play a little more relaxed. Because, I mean, when he was in Cleveland, right, didn't they say, like, even with Dwayne Wade and all the big pickups that they had, and they were like, oh, when you're on the court with LeBron, it's a different thing. Like, you always have to have your head on a swivel. It's like you're expected to win. You have that pressure, like, when he gives you the ball, I have to make this shot. And, like, everybody misses, right? We said with the Cleveland team, they went really horrible with their shooting percentages, and they caused them to dip, and that's why all those players ended up getting traded, like the Jay Crowders and everybody else.
Like LeBron or just like AD just got injured or something.
The Giants are finalizing a trade to acquire Darren Waller.
Oh, that's your boy. At least it's not to follow Derek Carr, right?
See, this is another one of those things. It's like, what are we doing with It's in Las Vegas right now. But to be fair to them, I mean, besides the fact that Darren Waller's pretty injured all the time, I was like, this is a pretty deep tight end class. But you'll hear more about that on the fifth down when we get to that next week.
Look at all those signings, all those latest news for you there. But yeah, I think that's what it is mainly. I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to LeBron and every and that winning mentality. And plus, I think we were talking about it like when Nolan had first started talking about Lakers. It's all about the franchise, right? They're not a developed franchise. They're a win now franchise. And so when you're brought in and you have the players like this, and like we always say, LeBron, you don't know how many years LeBron has left. You don't know how many good days AD has left. I mean, KD too, but AD doesn't like hit what he has left.
KD. Yeah.
I mean, it's like that. And so it's like, it's literally the mentality of we have to win a championship this year because AD's healthy, because LeBron's coming back, because this, because that. I'm on a 1-year contract. I want to go out with a chip. And so like, that's just the Lakers MO. I feel like in the past so many years. As far as that goes,
I know this wasn't really part of the conversation, but I kind of feel like is that do you think that's sort of like an undue pressure for kind of big market teams where like you look at a team like Milwaukee pre Giannis, right? There were a lot of teams that weren't really looking at them, or a lot of people who weren't really looking at them to be like contenders necessarily because they're a small market team. So we're trained to think that these small market teams don't really have a chance because they're not really able to get the money to sign these big, free agent players. And really they still haven't really been able to. I mean, they got Giannis pretty, far into the draft. I think it was like 14th overall or something like that. And then he ended up just turning into a mega star. But like you're talking about the Lakers who like kind of always have this aura of like they're going to contend this year. I think the Chicago Bulls are in there too because they always seem to think that they're going to contend regardless of the fact. And the New York Knicks, another one of those like where people look at them like they're failures because they have like one of the biggest market teams, but they just can't ever seem to get past that threshold of like winning a chip. Like, I mean, do you think that that's something that is prevalent in the league where we are like looking at these big market teams as like they have to contend because they're a big market team? Or do you think that that's something that's just maybe in our heads and they're not really like thinking that way, even though it just seems like we can never, like you guys, the Bulls can never develop players on our team. They seem to always thrive when they're elsewhere, like Larry Markkinen here. Anyway, throwing it over to you, Nolan.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing because you can always start off, like you just mentioned, drafting someone who, will grow there. But that's always like a 1 in 1,000 player. You don't always get that lucky. You may get a guy who's coming out of college who plays well like he did in college, but never takes an extra step to become great. So I think the big markets, contracts aside, the big markets are the big markets because they're able to draw in crowds. They're able to draw in all this hype. The Knicks, they've been the Mecca of basketball for so long. And even when they've had their shitty years post Carmelo, they're still the Knicks. That New York natives love the Knicks, diehard fans. And that's just their fan base. When you have Bucks, you have diehard fans because realistically, that's the only team that they really have.
It's the only thing you have in Milwaukee.
So
I'm just kidding. There's probably hockey or something.
Probably, yeah. But the thing is with that, kind of just based off of like who they can bring in. And that someone like...
It's official.
I know, I saw that. A 3rd round pick, though? Damn.
Sorry.
Anyways.
There's so much NFL news dropping right now for our listeners, but we'll get on that when we get to our next episode. The 5th down.
Tune in. But yeah, you got to look at it like you see a big name like LeBron always says, if you see me go into Orlando, I'm just going to retire because, Orlando, they've had their moments, but they're not a big market. Look at a team like, what was the other team? OKC. No star is going to willingly go to OKC. And you've seen it. None of them have ever wanted to sign with OKC. Chris Paul got traded there. Shea got traded there. KD and Westbrook were developed there, which is, like you said, 1 in 1,000. But you don't see guys going there because it's not a winning atmosphere. It's not historically a winning atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard for teams like that to actually get anything out of it. And then going back to contracts, if you're a small market team, your contracts aren't able to fill up the way that a big team can. So it is prevalent. It is unfortunate, but I think that goes with all sports. So
yeah. So get over to you, Jared. You have any additional thoughts to this conversation?
I would say I like how Nolan ended it. It happens in all sports because when you started talking about it, the first thing that came to mind is baseball, or football. Yeah, it's Moneyball. Yeah, the Yankees and
that
the
movie,
A's, or even like the Dallas Cowboys. Like, as much as everybody hates on the Cowboys, like they're expected to have this winning franchise, or like you have this prevalence of, oh, it's the Dallas Cowboys. You know,
Even though they're trash,
they have the name. Yeah, exactly.
Even though the Cowboys are trashed.
But I mean, I'll stick to baseball with this. Like, you have the Yankees. If the Yankees have a mediocre season, it's a failure because of the amount of money they can bring in, the amount of players and type of players they can bring in. That's what makes for very much so that they should be successful, right? And then you have a small market team like Moneyball, or you have like the Oakland A's, or so we'll pick somebody semi close to them, maybe like the Mets, still in New York. They're not going to pull the same type of players that they're able to play. So the rosters that they fill, maybe they can sign one big name, and then everybody else comes from a lower echelon. Like, I mean, when we talk about players, right, you want to talk about them in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so forth players. Like, they'll sign a tier 1 player, but they need to sign like a bunch of tier 3, tier 5 players to even out their money roster and things like that, and things that honestly that they can't afford. So when you look at big level teams, like you guys said, like the Knicks, the Bulls, the bigger franchises, or even the winning franchises that have been around, like even the Celtics as well, like you want to look at them to be successful. You're going to think that they're going to be successful because they have all this history, all this lineage of proving facts that they do. Like New York, even though they haven't won a championship, right? They're always in the finals or in the Eastern Conference Finals with the Bulls year after year, competing at that high level, or with the Pacers, or like even, I mean, this is all 90s basketball, but still, it's like when you think about where
you're getting all this. It's been a long time since all that. You just said.
But when you think about it, that's where people look back to. Right? When you look at Jordan, Jordan played against John Starks and Patrick Ewing, right? And then they had to fight against Reggie. And then you look even further back, you look at Boston and LA. I mean, just the history of the game proves that these are the winning franchises, or the best competing franchises. So when you look at Milwaukee, like you guys said, or OKC, they're not looked in that light. I mean, even though Milwaukee nowadays, yes, but now they're starting to build a name for themselves. They never had a name. OKC was from Seattle, who had a great thing, but then they moved, and then nobody wanted to be. Well, I mean, nobody wanted to be in OKC to begin with, but I mean, it's a hard sell there. But I mean, then that's why they were a small market team, even if they had KD, Harden, and Westbrook.
KD's rookie year was the last year that they were at the Seattle.
They were in Seattle.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So, okay.
So I mean, but the fact that they moved and everything, and they built the other two there.
Westbrook the next year.
Westbrook and Harden.
Yeah, it was Westbrook. Was it Harden the same year? I don't know. I can't remember.
Was Harden the same year or the year after or something? I know.
I thought it was the year after.
Remember they always had the three.
KD came first, and then they drafted Westbrook.
But yeah, I mean, it's so hard, like Nolan said, with the small market teams to compete and like money wise, especially. But that's kind of just my thoughts on it. When you talked about like that, my mind just literally went to football, went to baseball, and how those teams have to compete in it.
Yeah, it's a fair comparison. Yeah, because I was like, I do think that it does happen in other sports, but it's just funny how there's sort of like this undue pressure on like big market teams. Anyway, sorry, excuse me, that took us a little bit off on a tangent, but that'll do it for us here on Athletes Anonymous Presents After the Buzzer. We thank you again for joining us for this week's episode. We look forward to speaking about everything that's going to go down for the next couple of weeks for the NBA as we prepare for the playoffs, and then in the NFL as well. Join us on Athletes Anonymous Presents The Fifth Down, where we discuss everything that's going on in free agency. yeah, I think that'll do it for us here. Anyway, boys, where can they find you? Starting off with you, Nolan.
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at NolanKYT, NOLANKYT.
Raja, Jared, where can the people find you?
I'm on
Mr.
Instagram
Twitch
and
affiliate. Twitch
At
affiliate.
Jake Shirai, that would be me. Where I
Yeah.
might be streaming in a little bit or not. We'll see. Getting on that rank play, unless the boys get on, we'll play some Warzone. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitch at JShirai, JSHIRAI, and on Twitter JShirai808.
Raja, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at KONee. That's KAYOHKNEE. As always, excuse me. And you can also check us out on Instagram at the Poi and Soy Podcast, dropping fire content. Because we don't have that sound.
Bang, bang.
There we go. Yeah, I forgot that you actually have the sound. Anyway,
Yeah, Nolan has
but
it.
yeah, that'll do it for us here. As always, it has been a pleasure. It's been a joy from all of us here at Poi and Soy.
Good vibes and love, everybody.
Bang, bang. That was way louder than the shit.
Shoot.